When histories collide, 7 shocking civil wars that haunt US today. In a dimly lit basement in the heart of a small town, buried within layers of dust and cobwebs, lay dusty artifacts that could explode current understanding of our own history. But what if I told you that even in the supposedly safe corners of the US, sinister echoes of civil wars still play out? Stories of betrayal, bloodshed, and unspoken pain linger like ghosts of the past, waiting to be uncovered. Each tale, more chilling than the last, reveals a tapestry woven with horror and mystery. First up, there's the preposterous tale of the Great Whiskey Rebellion. Picture this: farmers, once humble tillers of the soil, transforming into fierce warriors wielding pitchforks and barrels against a tyrannical tax on their golden brew. The battle raged on hills so alive, you could hear the earth itself scream as tensions boiled over. It wasn't just about whiskey, it was a clash of ideals, freedom versus oppression. People rallied like wildfire, terrified yet emboldened, their hearts pounding with each battle cry. Then there's the Bleeding Kansas saga, where neighbors turned on each other over something as innocuous as the right to settle in a specific territory. Fear gripped the land, trust shattered like glass. Families once bonded by love now found themselves on opposing sides, shooting through open windows. It felt like a nightmare that wouldn't end, hearts racing in dread at every knock on the door. How had it come to this? But, as we dive deeper, the layers of this unsettling history reveal connections that rattle the very core of what we thought we knew. The whispers of the past tug insistently at our present, begging for attention, demanding to be understood. It's terrifying and exhilarating, isn't it? You can almost feel the pulse of those long-gone warriors, their breath hitching with every haunting revelation. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads-up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. But just when you think you've grasped the gravity of our darker histories, the timeline stretches further back. The scars of the American Civil War, a wound still fresh and festering, haunt the very ground we walk on. Friends turned enemies, every battlefield a testament to accumulating grief, and every bullet shot, a promise broken. The memories claw at the individual's souls, tightening their chests and burning like fire right under their skin. How do we move forward with such heavy baggage? As darkness gathers, and old ghosts begin to whisper their truths, questions arise that linger in the air. What happens when these buried truths meet modern conflicts? How do we reconcile with the horrific ties that bind the past to the present? Is the next wave of warriors brewing within us, yearning for recognition, or are we bound to keep fumbling in the dark, searching for light where shadows of the past loom large? The air felt thick with unease, as if every shadow lurking in the corners of that basement had suddenly come alive. An unsettling shiver coursed through the spines of those who remembered the whispers of past conflicts blending with the worries of today. As if on cue, the echoes of a forgotten uprising stirred deep within the damp walls, reaching for liberation though many longed for peace. The next story in this intricate web of discord was more sinister, focusing on the disturbing tale of the Anti-Rent War in New York, a conflict that nearly toppled the very fabric of the state. Imagine farmers shackled by feudal-like land leases with oppressive landlords breathing down their necks. They could hardly breathe under the weight of both tangible and intangible chains. Driven to desperation, these tenants, some of whom had tiller hearts and calloused hands, took up arms against a corrupt system that demanded loyalty and taxes for land they believed belonged to them. On the windswept hills of the Hudson Valley, the oppressive air was pierced by the clash of wills. The farmers' hearts thundered as they rallied under the banner of freedom. They stormed estates, their anger palpable, blurring the lines between lawfulness and rebellion. It was not just about land, it was a gratuity of defiance against a system that thought it could break them. The echoes of the past mixed seamlessly with the cries of a struggle that would set a precedent for the battles yet to come. As the dust settled over the remnants of those fiery confrontations, a deeper conflict lingered. The whispers of the dead started to resonate, merging with the pulsing injustices of the present day. Through the eyes of the tenants, one could see the reflection of today's battles, the fight for fair treatment and justice ringing loud as threads of history knit together the struggles across generations. Who were the real landlords now? Who dictated what was fair? And as the camera shifted to the crowd, they stared in disbelief, caught between admiration and fear for those who dared to challenge their fate. Discussions bubbled with outrage, memories mingled with solutions, and for many, a lump formed in their throats, an unspoken understanding of sacrifice that was all too real. The ghosts of the anti-renters mingled with modern silhouettes, protesters today who fight battles still unresolved but entrenched in an unyielding society. But what happens when battles fought decades ago blend eerily into current skirmishes, when the lines between history and our present reality blur? Can we escape it? Or are we doomed to repeat the cycles of vengeance, loss, and lingering curses? As rueful reflections of the past beckon toward the future, a chilling notion arises. Those who forget their history, it seemed, may well invite it back into their lives with a fervor even they couldn't comprehend. At that moment, a hushed voice echoed from the shadows, sending a chill down the spines of the audience. But what if the ghosts have been waiting for you? Just as the last heartbeat of that unsettling thought faded, the lights flickered, plunging the room into darkness. In the pitch-black silence, the air shifted. The audience held their breath, a collective heartbeat stuttering as the shadows danced menacingly. Whispers of dread threaded through the darkness, igniting fear in even the most steadfast souls. In that moment, it felt as if the very ground beneath them was shifting, a reminder that history had a habit of resurfacing when least expected. Then, a low, ominous hum filled the void, an echo of restless spirits. Laughter faded, replaced by gasps, and the tension thickened. Flickering lights sputtered back to life, revealing a figure standing at the basement's center. A face lined with experience, eyes blazing with a fire born from centuries of struggle. This was a historian, a keeper of tales long buried in the soil of time. "History doesn't sleep," he began, his voice steady but raw with emotion. "It merely lurks, waiting for the moment to emerge, to remind us of our unending fight." He stepped closer, and the crowd leaned in, drawn by an irresistible force. Beneath the weight of his words, they glimpsed the harsh truths of yesteryears mingling with the present. The farmer's plight, their uprising, didn't it resonate with today? The injustice felt by so many echoing through time, continuously igniting the flames of rebellion. Every act of defiance, every cry for justice from the past reverberates in the streets today. The historian spoke, his voice rising like a rallying cry. The anti-rent war was not just a battle for land, it was a struggle against oppression, a fight against the chains that bind us, whether financial, social, or political. The very battles they fought have laid the groundwork for our own. A murmur rippled through the audience. The realization began to sink in like the dusk seeping into morning. The struggles of the anti-renters were not relegated to faded pages, they haunted the present. Who are today's landlords, demanding their own toll of compliance? Researching a dead past, they needed to act. Eyes darting from face to face, they felt the urgency of the historian's words gripping them tightly. But those who do not remember, he continued, lowering his voice, risk being consumed. What happens when we invite dark echoes back into our reality? Suddenly, a crashing sound, a shattering of glass, erupted from the back of the room. The historian staggered back, and gasps of shock erupted. The audience whipped their heads in the direction of the sound, hearts racing with fear and anticipation. As a figure emerged from the chaos, a protester, face marked with fury and desperation. Time froze. This wasn't just any protester, this was someone bearing a heavy history written on their skin, a living testament to the battles that never really ended. Desperate eyes pierced through the dim light. They don't know. They don't understand what's coming for us. Eyes widened as the crowd held its breath again, aware something profound was about to shift. Each person felt the pang of a shared responsibility. What were they willing to do for change? To confront the ghosts of their past, the ghosts controlling their future. Before anyone could respond, chaos erupted once more, a deafening roar from outside, sending ripples of fear and excitement through the room. The protesters outside were gaining momentum, their chants echoing the cries of the anti-renters, mingling past with present, history repeating on the streets. The historian stood firm, eyes blazing with conviction. Are we part of the solution or merely observers in a tale much larger than ourselves? The moment has come, let them hear you. The crowd shifted, pulse quickening as plans typed into minds, defiance brewing, questions darkened amidst the fear. Were they ready to stand against whatever force was rising? What new alignments of power awaited them? And then the ground shook, leaving them wondering, or was it merely the specter of history, restless, demanding to be acknowledged? What awaited them outside? The room buzzed with tension. Faces turned, eyes gleamed with a mix of fear and determination. The historian's unwavering stance only ignited the crowd's resolve, as if the very air was alive with possibility. But outside, the raucous sounds of protest further drummed against their collective anxiety, blending chaos with urgency. The protester, still trembling from the adrenaline surge, stepped forward, voice hoarse but insistent. If we stay silent, we allow the past to dictate our future. This is not just history, it's our warning. Each word fell like a stone, heavy and resolute, reverberating through the thrumming hearts of the audience. Suddenly, the electric lights overhead blinked violently before flickering into darkness again. Gasps echoed, a symphony of raw fear. Someone shouted, "What's happening?" Panic surged like wildfire, and the atmosphere thickened, suffocating. In the pitch black, silhouettes shifted. The sound of footsteps approached, heavy. Breaths quickened. Is this a part of the act? A voice muttered nervously. But there was nothing theatrical about the dread creeping into every corner of the room. The shadowy figure spoke, a low growl cutting through the dark. The truth isn't easy to face. The historian's voice, rock solid, pierced the stillness. Histories collide when we ignore the signs. We've seen how ignorance spirals into chaos. Look around. His words ignited a flicker of clarity in the chaos. With a crack, a single light illuminated the room, casting long shadows. The protesters' desperation revealed itself further. They won't stop. They're coming for us all. Faces turned toward the door, where the sounds of protest morphed into a thundering roar. The crowd collectively nodded, as realization transformed fear into purpose. The historian advanced, his presence commanding their attention yet again. This is where we take a stand. If we unite, we can change the narrative. But first, we must peel back the layers of what's been hidden. And then a loud crash accompanied by the sharp scent of smoke spilled into the room. An overwhelming wave of fear swept through as the crowd surged toward the exit, wanting to escape the growing chaos and violence. We can't. The protester cried, panic-stricken. It'll be worse out there. Amid the swirl of emotions, threads of distrust wove tight. A few whispered doubts, unsure whether to flee or fight. Is this what they meant to bring back? Someone murmured, another echoed, not again. As the historian motioned to quell the panic, another tremor rippled through the ground. It felt almost sentient, alive, like a deep-rooted beast awakening from slumber. He yelled over the roar, "We are the authors of our story. We can't let fear write our fate." Suddenly, the door burst open, revealing a flood of protesters, faces fierce and wild. They embodied the restless history, their anger a direct connection to the generations that fought before them. A cacophony of shouts ripped through the air, echoing the struggles, the very real legacy of justice denied. Together. The protester cried, an ember of hope igniting in their chest. The historian raised a fist, unyielding against the turmoil and noise. We need to acknowledge our past. Only then can we forge a path forward. But just as those words fled his lips, a shadow in the doorway caught his eye, an unfamiliar figure wrapped in darkness, their intentions unclear. The tension thickened. Was this friend or foe? As the room leaned forward, waiting for revelation and perhaps disaster, the figure stepped closer, revealing a glint of metal. Silence enveloped them once more. Who were they, and what intention lay hidden beneath the surface? They all understood one thing: a choice loomed right in front of them, one that could alter everything they believed about their struggle. The moment had arrived, but would they rise to meet it or tumble back into the abyss of their fears? The figure in the doorway took a step forward, metal gleaming ominously in the faint light. It was a weapon. A knife, its blade reflecting the tension pooled in every corner of the room. Gasps broke the silence, and every eye widened in terror. "Who are you?" shouted the protester, voice cracking. The accusation hung in the air like a sour note in a melody, filled with suspicion and dread. "I'm the one who knows the truth," the figure replied, voice gravelly, almost familiar yet shrouded in mystery. "And I'm here to show you what's to come." The historian stepped forward, refusing to be intimidated. "We don't need threats, we need answers. You're not the first to show up with a blade. What do you want?" A chilling smile cracked across the figure's face, a stark contrast to the fear gnawing in their audience. "I want you to see," they said, gesturing toward the crowd, chaos boiling under the surface. "You're on the edge. You think you control the narrative? There's so much more at stake." The tension was palpable, hearts raced, and doubt infiltrated their minds. The protester turned to the historian, his eyes desperate. "This is madness. What if they're right? We're all going to be torn apart." Before the historian could reply, the unseen crowd outside erupted with an increasing fervor, shouting, chanting, a tidal wave approaching the fragile barrier that held them safe. "What do you see in there?" The figure taunted, drawing near, metal glinting sinisterly. "Do you see freedom? Or is it merely an illusion of control, the fantasy of change?" The historian raised his voice. "You're trying to instill fear. We won't shrink back. We will confront our past. It's the only way forward." But the figure only laughed, low and haunting, as they swirled the knife through the air, capturing everyone's attention. "Confronting the past? You have no idea what lurks beneath. What monsters you've awakened." And then, with a swift motion, the figure tossed the knife into the crowd, where it lodged itself dangerously close to the protester's feet. The momentum shifted, fear morphed into chaos. "What's happening?" screamed someone from the back. Panic set in, eyes darting from the historian to the dark figure. They were no longer sure who the real enemy was, the chaotic voices from outside or the unknown presence within their sanctuary. The historian, sensing the rising tide of panic, tried to stabilize the room. "Listen. We can't break. We need to remember that united we stand strong. Don't let fear fracture us." But whispers floated through the air like drowning echoes. "Maybe they know something we don't. What if this is a trap? We can't trust them." Suddenly, the lights flickered again, casting ominous shadows over everyone's faces. A renewed tremor rattled the ground, as though the very foundation of their beliefs was about to give way. As confusion reached a boiling point, the figure stepped back into the shadows, their features swallowed in darkness but their voice still penetrating. "The truth isn't a crystal ball, it's what you'll make of it when it's finally revealed." The protester leaned into the historian, breath quickening. "What does that mean? Are we destined to become another footnote in a history that keeps repeating itself?" Everyone fell silent, uncertain but hanging on to each word like a thread about to break. The promise of future choices mingled with the fear of their past. "We need to decide," the historian shouted, eyes blazing with fervor. "Will we dive into the depths of the truth together, or let fear tear us apart?" But just as they began to process the weight of his words, a thunderous noise from outside exploded, followed by a series of blinding flashes that lit up the gathering like a lightning strike. leaving them all wondering what reality awaited them next. As chaos reigned, a single thought clawed at their minds. Was this the moment they could reclaim their story, or was it just the beginning of a darker chapter yet to unfold? The air crackled with anxiety, each breath feeling like a weighted stone pressed against their chests. The blinding flashes outside flickered like the pulse of a living nightmare, illuminating the dread-stricken faces within the room. Fear mingled with urgency, tightening around them like a noose. What are they doing out there? The protester's voice trembled. We can't let them breach the barricades. Stay calm. The historian urged, every word a desperate attempt to pull them back from the brink of panic. We have to think. This is our moment to stand together or risk total collapse. Outside, the shouts grew louder, a cacophony of rage that seemed determined to drown out reason. Glass shattered, echoes of chaos tore through the air, and the buildings around them trembled as if the streets themselves were alive, roaring with unrest. Then, out of the confusion, a piercing scream sliced through the commotion. It chilled them to the bone. They're coming. They're coming. Panic surged like a tidal wave. The historian's heart raced as he watched the protester pull away from the group, eyes wide with terror. We can't wait. We need to decide now. In that moment, everything felt like a blur. Shadows danced at the edges of their collective sight, and the figure glided through the chaos, a ghost in a storm. Their voice echoed hauntingly, what will you do when the choices you make lead to unforeseen horrors? The historian clenched his fists, fighting to maintain control. We will fight for our truth. We can make a stand. Suddenly, another crash resonated, this one closer. It sent a jolt through the crowd, and they instinctively drew back, fear binding them like shackles. Look! One of the attendees shouted, pointing to the windows. Outside, a figure clad in dark clothing hurled an object towards them. The historian's heart dropped as he realized it was a Molotov cocktail, flaming and fierce. Everyone, back! He yelled, trying to shield the protester, but it was too late. Glass exploded as the bomb shattered against the barrier, a fiery burst erupting inside like a demon unleashed. Heat rushed toward them, and instincts took over. They stumbled, some falling, others rushing toward the exits, but the flames spread with merciless speed. Move! Now! The historian shouted, forcing his way through the thrumming crowd. He reached for the protester, who stood frozen, eyes wide and filled with horror as flames chased the shadows across the room. Help me! The protester gasped, surrounded by the suffocating smoke that curled around them like fingers. With a racing pulse, the historian grasped his arm, pulling him toward the nearest door. Don't look back. We can't let fear consume us. Just as they reached the threshold, another figure emerged, a silhouette against the blaze, the dark figure from before. You're running toward the fire, they said, eerily calm amid the chaos. What can you hope to find in the ashes? Get out of our way! The historian shouted. But the figure only chuckled, a sound that sent a chill down his spine. The truth lies beyond the flames, they whispered, and in that moment, the historian felt the weight of history pressing down upon him, the past and future colliding in a tempest of fear and uncertainty. As the flames roared higher, casting flickering shadows across every face, the hoarse, haunting question echoed in the historian's mind. What kind of truth awaited them in the inferno ahead? Could they emerge from the chaos unscathed, or were they destined to be consumed by the very history they sought to confront? The smoke thickened, wrapping around them like a shroud, and all at once, they understood forging ahead might mean stepping into a darkness they could not even fathom. In that agonizing moment, they stood at the threshold between what they knew and what they feared. Would they plunge into the depths of the unknown together, or would this be the moment that the past finally unraveled them? The flames roared higher, licking the walls with ravenous hunger. Heat engulfed them, but the historian couldn't focus on the fire. It was the murmurs around him that gripped his mind. What do we do? Someone whimpered, voice barely rising above the crackle of burning debris. Keep moving. He yelled, desperate to cut through the panic. He could feel the protester tugging at his arm, shaking as fear consumed him. "We can't stay here. The way out is through." But even as he said it, doubts gnawed at him. What awaited them beyond those flames? Would they find safety, or something worse? The moment stretched into an eternity as they edged toward the exit. Then, the historian saw a glimmer of what looked like panic-driven madness reflected in the crowd. "No! Don't push!" Someone screamed, and with that, a wave of bodies surged back toward them, a stampede of terror. He felt the ground beneath them quake as if the very earth responded to their fear. "Stay focused!" He shouted again, but the words were swallowed in a swell of shouts and cries. Suddenly, a figure crashed through the crowd, pushing and shoving, shoulders pressed hard against anyone in their way. It was a woman, her face smudged with soot and panic etched into her features. "They're coming. We need to go now." Eyes wide, she spun around, frantically searching for anyone who might listen. "They'll kill us if we don't hurry." The historian's breath quickened. Who's coming?" But before she could respond, a loud explosion echoed from outside, shaking the ground, silencing the chaos for a brief heartbeat. The sudden stillness hung in the air before a metal object soared overhead, crashing through the building's remains and striking a nearby wall with a horrific crunch. "Get down!" he shouted, reflexively pulling the protester low, shielding him with his own body, but even as they ducked, dread filled him. The metallic sounds of destruction mingled with fresh screams, rising ominously above the flames. The historian could taste the acrid smoke on his tongue, gnawing at his throat as he fought the urge to cough. They stumbled to their feet as flames continued to climb. The figure in dark clothing appeared again from the shadows, closer now, silhouetted against the fury of the blaze. "You think you can escape?" they taunted, voice hauntingly calm. "You're trapped within the very history you tried to rewrite." "No!" the historian yelled. "We're moving forward. We won't let you dictate our story." His heart pounded against his ribcage, a steady drum of defiance. The figure tilted their head, unreadable behind shadows. "Then maybe the truth is more terrifying than the fire." Before he could respond, the ground shook again, this time more violently, sending splinters cascading down from the ceiling. The historian tore his gaze away, urgency flooding him. "This way!" he shouted, shoving through the disarray, the protesters still clinging to his side. They pushed through the remnants of their barricade, fighting against the tide of fear. Outside was another world, a battleground painted in chaos, flames crackling in the night like a fever dream, but there was no time to see. The cry of a nearby siren pierced through the tumult. They had only fled the flames to emerge into darkness, where the threat lingered just beyond the flickers of firelight. "Where do we go?" the protester gasped, looking around, eyes wide with terror. "Forward," the historian replied, feeling the weight of every moment carry them closer to unknown horrors. "We have to find a safe place. We can't let them win." But in that moment, his heart sank. As they dashed into the chaos, he realized that he had no idea who or what was waiting in the shroud of night. What if the fire had merely been a distraction? What if the true enemy lay hidden, ready to strike as they fled into the darkness? And just as they turned a corner, a shadow darted past them, a glimmer of movement that made his stomach twist. "Did you see that?" the protester whispered, his face frozen in fear. The historian gripped his arm, determination melding with dread. "Keep moving." But with every step, he couldn't shake the chilling feeling that nothing ended in the darkness. It was just the beginning. What hunt awaited them in the shadows? And could they reclaim their freedom before becoming prey themselves? They burst into the alley, breathless and scanning the darkness. The chaotic sounds of the fire faded, replaced by an eerie calm punctuated only by distant sirens and the muffled chaos of the world collapsing around them. "Where do we even go?" the protester's voice broke, almost begging. The historian could feel panic creeping in the corners of his own mind. It clawed at him, urging him to find safety. They were exposed now, vulnerable in this unfamiliar territory. A distant blast rattled the air, followed by the heavy thud of boots hitting pavement. It felt like their heartbeats synchronized with the rhythm of footsteps, a haunting echo of impending doom. Shadows danced along the alley walls, flickering light battling against the consuming dark. The historian's eyes darted to the left, where another figure emerged from the darkness, breathless and frantic. "Over here!" the newcomer shouted, leading them deeper into the obscurity. With no other choice, they fell in line behind her, adrenaline kicking harder with every step. She was drenched in ash, like they had all danced too close to the flames. "They'll follow us if you don't hurry," she yelled, as her eyes glimmered with urgency. "Who will?" the historian gasped, his voice hoarse. "The ones causing the chaos, the ones you saw in there. They're hunting us. They want to silence the truth," she said, panic edging into her tone. Dread twisted his stomach as they navigated the twisted maze of alleys, a labyrinth of concrete and fear. "But why? What do they think we know?" She glanced back over her shoulder, breath coming in harsh pants. "You don't understand. They believe the past should stay buried, and anyone who tries to expose it." She paused, choking on her words. Her fear was palpable. As they turned a corner, a blinding light flickered ahead. The historian froze. A figure stood there, illuminated by a harsh beam, weapon drawn, face obscured. "Stop!" the guard shouted, voice slicing through the night air. The historian's pulse raced. "Let us go," he urged, but the protester hesitated, eyes glued to the formidable silhouette blocking their path. "Put your hands where I can see them," the guard commanded sharply. In an instant, the historian's world shrank down to the sweat on his palms and the rapid beating of his heart. "Listen, we're unarmed. We came from Shut It." The guard spat, stepping closer. The weight of the weapon aimed their way felt like a heavy stone pressing against his chest. "We don't want trouble," the protester added, voice quaking. Before they could respond, the alley erupted into noise. Shouts from the far end caught the guard's attention, and in that split second of confusion, instinct took hold. The historian lunged forward, grabbing the protester and the newcomer, pulling them tight against the wall. "Now!" he hissed, adrenaline firing every neuron in his body. They dashed forward, barreling past the stunned guard just as another explosion rang out, shaking the ground beneath their feet. They plunged deeper into the maze, heart pounding with echoes of their rushed escape. But in their flight, darkness enveloped them again. The shadows were thicker now, tighter, wrapping around them like constricting vines. The historian's mind raced, each beat of his heart matched with the clenching fear spreading through him. "We can't keep running forever, there has to be a plan," he murmured, breathless, but as they pressed on, the dark presence loomed ever closer, whispers floated just beyond the edge of their awareness, as if the shadows held secrets meant only for them. Each sound made him flinch, a scrape, a soft thud, a distant howl of despair. In the depths of his mind, a fleeting thought sparked. What if the truth they sought to protect was the very thing that put them at risk? Suddenly, the alley opened up into a deserted courtyard, illuminated by a feeble street lamp. The historian stopped short, heart threatening to leap out of his chest. In the center, a table lay scattered with papers, documents thrown haphazardly, and news clippings. "What is this?" he breathed, stepping closer. But even as he moved, the darkness shifted. They weren't alone. From the shadows, figures emerged, faces cloaked in anonymity, a dangerous glint in their eyes that chilled him to the bone. "Welcome to the reckoning," one of them declared, voice smooth like silk, yet laced with malice. The historian's breath caught in his throat. "What do you want from us?" he demanded, voice steady despite the tremor in his gut, but before the masked figure could reply, a shriek sliced through the air, echoing off the stone walls, shuddering deep in his soul. Hopes of escape faded as dread settled in. A new, menacing reality awaited them. What terrible truth would they confront next? The courtyard seemed to hold time still, the chill of foreboding wrapping around the historian and his companions like a tightening grip. The masked figures closed in, shadows swirling ominously as one stepped forward, the street lamp glinting off something metallic. A knife? No, a pen. Its purpose felt menacing in that moment, a weapon tied to words, and those words could forge or destroy. Do you know what this place is? The figure continued, voice like a predator's whisper. It's where truths come to die, or to be reborn. Fear carved deeper lines on the historian's face as he glanced at the papers fluttering in the breeze. They read like a litany of buried secrets, names, dates, events long obscured by unyielding silence. Each word felt like a nail in a coffin, sealing away histories that should never be forgotten. Please, we just want to understand, the newcomer pleaded, eyes wide and desperate. The protester clung to her, fear radiating from them both. Understanding? The figure chuckled, a dark sound that reverberated in the night. Understanding is dangerous. It means taking the weight of the truth, feeling every bruise it leaves behind. Are you ready for that? The historian's stomach churned, entangled in a web of dread and curiosity. We've already faced the chaos. We can't go back, he said, feeling the faint flicker of defiance spark within him. Then you must listen, the figure replied sharply. Every legend has its roots in truth, hidden beneath layers of lies. This, they gestured to the table, is the evidence of the past. Here lies abandoned history brought to light if you dare to uncover it. He wished he could recoil but found himself rooted in place. What's the cost? An unsettling smile crept across the masked face. The cost is your silence. Speak what you discover, and you'll forfeit your safety in exchange for exposing the shadows that haunt us. Can you live with that? A tense silence enveloped them, heavy like a storm cloud ready to burst. The historian's thoughts raced, battling between the instinctive urge to survive and the profound need for the truth. I can't sacrifice, he started, but the shriek sliced through the air again, echoing in the hollow night. The shadows quivered as if in response, drawing closer, ready to consume. Choose wisely, the figure warned, their voice dropping to a low hiss. Time is slipping away, and they're coming for you. The historian seized a handful of papers, burning truths in his mind, tangible pieces of a past he yearned to reveal. Grabbing the protester's trembling hand, he met the newcomer's eyes, feeling the pulse of courage surge through them. We can make a difference. We can't let them drown out the voices that mattered, he said fiercely. Without waiting for an answer, they bolted back toward the alley, driven now by a force stronger than their fear. Behind them, the figures erupted into chaos, shouting, their voices mingling with the screeching sirens outside, melding into a dissonant symphony that echoed through the night. The alleyways twisted and turned, darkened corners seeming to close in like the jaws of fate. The historian knew they were being hunted, but now, amidst that fear, there was also a flicker of hope, the possibility of revealing a truth so powerful it might echo across generations. Bursting into another street, they halted to catch their breath, glancing nervously over their shoulders. Caught between the fierce realization of their mission and the chaos surrounding them, each second ticked away like a countdown. Suddenly, a hollow laugh pierced the air from the shadow behind them. You think running will save you? The voice was menacing, familiar. Another figure stepped into the light, slithering into their path with an unsettling smile. Now the stakes were higher, the danger more palpable. What lay ahead would challenge not just their resolve, but the very fabric of their identities as truth-seekers. Would they find the courage to confront what awaited them, or would it all unravel in the face of the darkness? The courtyard felt alive with tension, air heavy with shared dread. They stood there, bodies trembling, hearts racing, unsure of which way to turn. The historian took a breath, sensing the weight of time press on his shoulders. We need a plan. We can't run forever, he said, eyes fierce with determination. The protester nodded, pushing his hair back from his forehead, sweat mingling with soot. What if we take this fight to the people? To the truth? The resolve in his voice sparked something in the historian, a flicker of hope ignited within the chaos. But how? The newcomer whimpered, worried eyes darting to the shadows shifting around them. Before anyone could respond, multiple figures stepped forward from the gloom, dark masses merging and separating with eerie fluidity. The historian felt his heart stumble. Who were these figures? Were they allies or foes? We need to make the stories of the past heard, one of the masked figures spoke, voice smooth yet ominous. But it comes with a cost. Each truth costs a legacy. What do you mean? The historian demanded, feeling the urge to step back. We need those stories more than ever. His voice rose, a plea wrapped in defiance. The masked figure tilted their head, shadows obscuring their features. You seek to awaken a sleeping giant. In doing so, you invite its wrath. Do you truly understand the market you're entering? Enough. The historian said, heart pounding. We don't need to cower in fear from our past. It is precisely because of it that we can make a change. He took another step forward, bold and unwavering. Suddenly, the laughter from the previous shadow echoed again across the courtyard, sending shivers down their spines. How noble, but naive. The ghosts of the past bow to the living. They only feed on fear and chaos. As the shadows danced, the historian staggered backward, and the protester gripped his arm tighter. We need to move. He urged, panic creeping into his voice. The historian shook his head, resolve filling his chest. No. This is not the end. We hold the stories that can heal us or burn us down. Are we willing to stand and face them? The newcomer, finally summoning courage, chimed in, if we unite our voices, if we tell our truths, they cannot silence us. Just then, a rumble from outside shook the earth, a violent reminder that their foes were getting closer. The sirens blared again, drowning them in a tide of impending danger. Then let us do it, the protester declared, voice rising above the din, determination flowing through him. Let us unite as one. Echoes of agreement surged through the small, ragtag group present, transcending fear, rising into the truth. The historian felt the weight lift slightly. They could stand together. Without hesitation, they dashed toward a nearby window, breaking through the dusty cobwebs of neglect. We'll make them listen. Responded the historian with fervor, courage ignited within. The street exploded in a fever pitch of chaos, voices melding into one, unstoppable. The protester's chant grew louder, a heartbeat within the darkness. Truth shall prevail. No more silence. No more fear. With an overwhelming sense of purpose, they burst out into the open, unleashing their collective voice into the turbulent evening. The world around them trembled, not just from the chaos but the power of their intent. The masked figures, previously looming shadows, revealed themselves as a band of storytellers. They merged into the crowd, breathing life into the discontent bubbling on the surface. With renewed vigor, the historian reached for the protester's arm, his heart beating fast. We can't let history repeat itself, we must create our narrative. As they joined the swelling crowds, hands intertwined, there was a shift and awakening that rippled with urgency and determination. A reminder, a reckoning, imbued in each voice raised against oppression. The sky above erupted into flashes of brilliance, not just of chaos but hope. Finally, they were driving forward, confronting the ghosts of their past, entwining them with the present narrative. Each word resonated, building an unyielding staircase toward their freedom. Together, they yelled, a roar rising to the heavens. The historian realized, in this moment, they had conjured the strength of those who came before them. Together, they forged ahead into the unknown, ready to reclaim their truth and transform the nightmares that loomed. No longer merely spectators of history, they had become its authors, determined to shape a future unfettered by past shadows. As they pressed forward, fear and uncertainty faded into the backdrop, and the vibrant pulse of a new beginning thumped in their chests. And though the fight was far from over, a simple truth rang clear: they'd emerged stronger, united beneath a shared banner, their voices echoing through the streets, scripting the next chapter of untold stories waiting to unfold. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will challenge everything you thought you knew. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support for the journey we're on together. Flood the comments section with your thoughts about this gripping conclusion. What do you think will happen next? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who desperately need to see this conclusion. Your voice matters, and it's time to make it heard.